Hello there. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Wellness Wednesday. I'm Dr. Lauren Fisher, the host of Wellness Wednesday. I am very glad to have you here tonight. We've got an exciting guest. I'll be interviewing Sandra VanderGoot, co-owner of Mind the Mat Yoga and Pilates. She's a jack of all trades, and including, aside from yoga instructor, she is a doula. And we're going to be talking about the transformative process of pregnancy. So stay tuned tonight. We have two giveaways. There'll be some trivia, so we'll be looking for you to participate in the chat box. And hello, Bridget Brown, one of our loyal followers. Good evening. Before we go into the heart of the talk today, I just want to take a moment. I normally go over Delray news, but I think I'm going to go and touch upon some national news. All this light and hope and vaccines and things of that nature, there's also been some really tough things going on in this past week. There's a lot more shootings and, and especially, I think, I should say it's not that so much more has happened this past week, but I think that more has been revealed about the racism and the acts of violence that are happening to our fellow Asian Americans. So I just want to take a moment to touch upon that. I know that several people are feeling powerless and not sure what to do. One good thing, again, about things coming out more in the media is that we can figure out what we can do to support our fellow coworkers, friends, and citizens. And, one of the simplest things to do is just actually ask people how they're doing. How are they feeling? Maybe even have a conversation about what their experiences have been. Sometimes people, we take things for granted. If that's not our experience, we haven't even asked, like, what are they experiencing? But most of us are aware that it's been especially tough for Asian Americans with, unjust bias because of the pandemic and, blame and things of that nature. So please talk to the people but also, I wanted to provide some resources. The Advancing Justice for Anti-Asian Hate has a lot of great information on it. You could donate, but they, in particular, are also teaming with Hollaback Organization, and they are talking about bystander intervention. And I think this is really helpful because, I think it's one thing to acknowledge, but if you are someone, acknowledge what's going on, but if you're someone who witnesses this happening to someone, there are options of what you can do. I'm sure most of you have heard of the bystander effect, which is the result of like seeing things in a crowd and not taking action for several different reasons, because you think someone else may be going to do it, or it's, it's not a big deal, or it doesn't pertain to you. So this guide, and we're going to put the link to it, talks about like how you can confront or, elicit help. But I think it's really important that, anyone of color, but especially we're focusing on Asian Americans today, like that we show up for them and do what we can and let them know that we're allies. And just last thing on this is that, they also offer some online trainings that are coming up in the next week or two. So just wanted to touch upon that. And thank you, Susan, for putting it up. All right, so let's move into the heart of our show tonight. Again, so what I'd like to do is just do a brief intro about Sara VanderGoot. Many of you probably know her. She's been a fixture in Delray for quite a while, both a citizen and a business owner. Sarah's the co-owner of Mind the Mat Pilates and Yoga, along with Megan Brown. And, they really, the two of them have really paved the wellness community here in Delray. They've been like the forerunners establishing their business in 2008. But Sara, to me, is a very interesting person because she wears a bunch of different hats and she has a really kind and gentle soul. So I am very pleased to introduce you to Sara. Welcome.
Hi. Thanks for having me, Lauren.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So, talk to me a little bit. Tell our people who are listening, tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, what your studio is all about.
Yeah. Well, I'm Sarah, and I'm a mom. I think that's probably one of the most important things about me, of a 9-year-old boy. And I really love working with other moms during pregnancy, after pregnancy, and often really through many different transitions in their lives, and women who don't have children as well. So Mind the Mat, what kind of makes Mind the Mat special, I think, among yoga and Pilates studios is that we do have yoga and Pilates classes, but when we first opened, what we really wanted to do is also do like really expert specialized classes for special populations like pregnant women, like women post pregnancy, women who've had C-sections, women who've had pelvic floor issues, right? And my business partner is a doctor of PT, and I am a certified massage therapist. And so we really wanted to have these specialized classes. We also have classes for people with neurological disorders, people who have trauma informed classes. Um, we run teacher trainings. So I think what really sets us apart is that kind of that specialized aspect of our classes.
Okay. Awesome. I love the vision. And you know, Sarah, when you and I were talking, I was interested to find out that you had started as a lawyer. So tell me, how did we go from lawyer to this world?
I think it was by the grace of the universe, honestly. But so I was telling Lauren earlier that I was in law school. I was more stressed than I've ever been in my life. I was definitely interested in working in human rights. I'd lived in Latin America and traveled around Latin America and kind of saw the influence of U.S. foreign policy there. And so I was just very stressed in law school and broke. So
Hmm.
there was a massage therapy school right down the street from the law school where students at the school would give $25 massages. And I was like, sign me up. I was going there several times a month.
Great deal.
And they were telling me about what they were learning and studying. And every time I would hear, like, my whole being would just light up. And I knew, like, I fell in love with it. So the day I graduated from law school, I signed up for massage therapy school, and I worked as a lawyer for 2 years during the day. And I took massage therapy school at night. And I mean, ever since then, I graduated from massage therapy school, and the rest is pretty much history. So,
Yeah, I love
yeah,
that. I think it's just also it's a great note to people too, like, you know, intuitively like knowing what lights up your heart. You know, that's really heart-centered, you know, right? When things the things that we're passionate about, you know, they light us up. And they're not as stressful, right? So, that's
yeah.
cool.
And it
Yeah.
doesn't feel like work. It feels like what I would
Right.
want to do anyway. So, yeah.
Yeah. So exciting. So you started down this path.
Yep.
And and the doula. So let's move into talking about a doula. Can
Yes.
we? And
Yeah.
for those of you who are tuning in just a few minutes, we're gonna have our first trivia question with your chance to win classes. So stand by. But let's talk about like as you moved into, you know, this new vein of like yoga and things, you also became a doula. How did you talk to us about that transition? Also, and then what is a doula?
Great question. So, yeah. So, from becoming a massage therapist, um, doing yoga was like a very natural kind of complement to that. And then becoming a yoga teacher was a natural complement to that.
Mhm.
So it kind of rounded out my skill set. But the way I became a doula is that I was trained in prenatal yoga, and I was teaching prenatal yoga at Mind the Mat, and I often would have my students as my massage clients as well. and do prenatal massage. And people started asking me to come to their births and do prenatal massage and yoga with them. And I was like, well, I'm not a doula, right? I'm not a doula. I'm not trained as a doula.
Yeah.
Um, sure, like if you want me to come do massage and yoga for you during your birth,
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy to. And so I started doing that. And then I realized, well, wait, I better get trained as a doula because what I'm really doing is being a doula.
Yep.
So then I went on to get trained in being a doula and assisting births. And also, often my clients are both come to me for massage and yoga, and then I'm also their doula. So it's really comprehensive and I get to know them really.
Mm-hmm.
And what is a doula? Yeah, that
Yeah.
was the
What is a
question.
doula?
So a doula is, let me tell you what it's not, because sometimes this gets mistaken. A doula is not a midwife. The doula is not a doctor or a nurse, right? We don't
Mm-hmm.
deal with sort of like the medical side of things. The doula is really an emotional support person. And sometimes, and that includes having a knowledge of the birth process, the stages of labor, signs and signals for, um, you know, maybe a labor that's not progressing well, or when there's a complication. So we are trained in that, but ultimately we're an emotional support person, and that can include hands-on work like massage or just touch, but really, we're there to support mom fully and um, to advocate for the birth that she wants, because we talk extensively with mom and throughout her pregnancy. So a doula should really know what mom wants and then fully advocate for that process to unfold. And of course, birth is unpredictable, so we talk about
Mm-hmm.
options ahead of time, and moms can think those things through ahead of time with their doula in a conversation.
Yeah. Um, One of our guests, Danielle Reynolds, today says massage and yoga, that is a spiritual birth, comprehending birthing to support mom and baby.
Yes.
And in truth, Sarah, you actually have to meet Danielle. She's our therapist who here at Delray Psych and Wellness, and she specializes in working with prenatal, postnatal moms, lumps working. That's her passion as well. And she also is a Reiki energy person, and we're going to give away a session for her Reiki energy in a little bit.
Hi,
So,
Dan. We're
uh,
gonna get together for coffee for sure.
yeah, but we love that like real holistic approach, though, right? Like you're really integrating many different things when you're helping women. It's not just a, straightforward process. So do you want to let's keep talking about the doula because I think this is where the transformative process of pregnancy comes in that we spoke
Mhm.
about. Um, and, well, we've got 10 viewers. Actually, before we go into the transformative process, let's go ahead and do our first trivia question. So, Sarah's going to pose the question, and this is for a 4-pack for prenatal yoga, which is offered virtually and in person right now. Is that correct?
Yes, and outdoors as well. So,
Okay,
and
awesome.
and whoever wins can choose which format.
Yeah. So I would recommend you only answer if you're going to be able to use this or you have someone you can gift it to. The other trivia question will be for anyone listening. All right. Go ahead, Sarah. Pose the
All
question.
right. So this question has to do with the stages of labor. And the question is, what is the most challenging stage of labor called? What is the term for the most challenging stage of labor?
Yeah. Let's see. Do you think that most people know this?
I think a lot of women who have taken childbirth classes know. Um, and then so people who've had babies probably would know from a childbirth class.
Mm-hmm. So we're waiting in our chat box to see who answers. Again, the question is, What is the
What is,
most difficult stage of labor?
yeah, what's it called? I feel like that trivia time clock should be ticking, like on the game
Yeah,
show.
I know, right? Oh, well, we'll let them sit with it and let's start talking about the transformative stages of pregnancy or the process here. And if no one answers, we'll throw out another trivia question. Okay. All right. So talk to me about the process.
Yeah. So one of the things I really love about being a doula, um, is that there is the process of transformation in life for anybody. In the yogic tradition, there's a model for it, for transformation. And the model is that we have a status quo, and you can see this happening in societies as well, right? And on an individual level. Um, and so you have a status quo, and then a factor gets thrown in, a new factor gets thrown in, right? So for a family, it could be, oh, here we had one children and two parents. Now we have two. We had a baby. We have two parents. So two
Mhm.
children and two parents. So a new factor gets thrown in, and in that process of transformation, after the new factor gets thrown in, chaos occurs,
Mhm.
because we've never handled this before, right? We don't know what to do. So there's chaos. And often chaos can send us into, in what they call in the yogic tradition, the fertile void. And that's
Mm.
this place where, we often feel fear, but it's called the fertile void because it's an opportunity for us um, to create new internal resources that we can take into our life, right? And and then to create something new. So we go into that fertile void. There's a lot of fear, and then we resources can be like, okay, I'm going to make sure I'm doing a lot of self-care. I'm getting massage, I'm sleeping well, I'm eating well. I'm going to call friends, right? And you call on all these resources in your life. And then you start to come out of that fertile void and something new is created, right? So now you have a family of four, for example. And so
I,
you have now a new status quo. And that's
yeah.
the process. But with labor and delivery, you see that process like times 100, really up close,
Mm.
through the stages of labor. And that's
I
what's
feel
really,
like you could be explaining like the whole pandemic process, like the pandemic void, crisis, reorganization, growth. So basically you're saying anyone who's been pregnant during the pandemic or became pregnant is going to be well equipped for this process.
yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah, because we lived it out on a societal level. And then the stages of labor really mimic that process of transformation.
It
Um,
happens more than once.
what's that?
Does that reorganization, the crisis and like growth or chaos, you said, sorry, not crisis, chaos and growth, does that happen more than once throughout the pregnancy?
Well, really, that process it happens during labor and delivery, right? But it
Okay.
can happen during pregnancy as well. Like when you
Hmm.
find out you're pregnant, there
Hmm.
might be a new thing and this adjustment to, wow, now it's not just me. I'm letting go and grieving my independent self, and now I'm
Right.
having to pay attention to all kinds of things that are I'm going to impact also another human being. And so,
Hmm.
yeah, that same thing can happen during pregnancy. And yeah, and then when you have a new baby, that same thing can happen. So it's really a constant process that we're all going through in
Yep.
life. It's just
Right.
you get to see it in this such a visceral way during labor and delivery.
Yeah, completely. And I know that people sometimes get stuck on the anxiety part, but if you're like holding both, like you said, it was an opportunity, right? This
Yeah,
opportunity for growth. And like, while there's anxiety, there's also this a lot of beauty in the stage as well, and finding your footing. So,
yes.
okay.
What's interesting about this most challenging stage of labor,
Did
uh,
anyone get it right?
did anyone get it right? I don't see it in the list.
Okay.
Do you want me to ask a different question?
Sure. Why don't we go to that other question?
The other question? Okay. So, how many centimeters dilated does your cervix need to be in order to begin pushing? So, how many centimeters? So, while people answer that, um, so what's interesting, so the answer to the previous question is it's called transition. The most difficult stage of labor is called transition. And what's
Oh.
interesting, transition is the fertile void. And it's right when women tend to want the epidural because they don't want to feel the discomfort or the
Mm-hmm.
pain, right? But what is often missed is that discomfort, as long as we're not being injured, is super instructive and super, um, it's such an opportunity, right? To know ourselves, pain or discomfort. And so right when the woman wants the epidural in transition, that's sort of when, as a doula, if everything is
Mm-hmm.
going during labor, I really need to be there to kind of guide through and say, "You got this. We're almost there. You're almost ready to push your baby, and you're doing this one contraction at a time, kind of thing."
Mm-hmm.
And often I've had clients who wanted the epidural, and not that I'm going to say no, you can't have it, right? But I'm going to offer and encourage them to try to move through it without medication. Um, and
And
that's
what's the reasoning for them?
yeah,
Like, how is that beneficial to like lean into that discomfort? You
that's
know.
a great question. And there's psychological and physical reasons.
Uh-huh.
Psychologically, it's like when we can really face our fear, um, and we can. And again, I am not against epidurals at all, and I think there's a place for them.
Right.
But I also think there's a place for not having them, and
Sure.
um, and I think psychologically, if a woman can breathe through those difficult urges,
Mm-hmm.
surges of kind of sensation, when it's all over, my experience is that women are so empowered. It's such an
Mm.
empowering process. It's like I've heard them say, like, if I can do that, I can do anything.
I was just thinking, I'm like, right? Like that would be like a sign of
Yeah.
resilience. But
Yeah.
it's interesting. And I know that you say, and it makes sense that like you're there as an advocate and a coach, and you support women, making the decisions that are right for them. But I love that you're providing that alternative, whereas sometimes I think conventional medicine is like, well, this is what you do. People have epidural. You go in, you're in, out, 2 days, get the C-section. And you're allowing them, right, to know their different options, but also preparing them, right, for that discomfort you know,
Yeah.
um,
Talking it through
and
ahead of time, like, what is
mhm,
this going to feel like when we're in transition?
yeah.
Right? And how can we handle it without medication if that's one of the options you'd like to try? I will also say there are physical reasons why it's
Mhm,
important. So if a labor is going smoothly and a woman enters into transition and then all of a sudden she wants an epidural, at that point, it's like a train going down a track and then you slam on the brakes
mm,
because an epidural slows down the birthing process. Um, and that's when usually then the doctor's going to say, oh, we need to give you a little bit of Pitocin to speed it back
Mm-hmm.
up. And the body is like, what is going on? Like, I was chugging away down this track so
Yeah.
beautifully, and all of a sudden, whoa. And that's when often baby will go into distress.
Mm-hmm.
And post contractions are so much stronger than natural contractions.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes mom ends up in C-section. So there are
Yeah.
physical reasons as well. Um,
Or
and
maybe babies shoot out like footballs, like I was told that when I came out. We don't know if that's validated, but that's what they told me. Wait, so this is great information. And so for a second, let's just pause because we do have a winner. Someone said, I believe it was Kristen, for 10 centimeters. That is the right answer, right, Sarah?
yes, it is.
All right. Kristen, you are the winner of the 4-pack for prenatal yoga. I will link up with you after and make sure that you get that package. Everyone still stand by. We got a little bit more information and we do have one more giveaway in a little bit. We're going to have to come up with a new trivia question. So ponder that, Sarah. You
Got a
know,
bunch in my pocket. No
okay.
problem.
I know. I know you're a fast thinker. That's what I appreciate about you. Um, okay, you're hitting on psychological, but also like the physical prep. Tell me about how the yoga actually helps the birthing process or helps prepare women for that, for
That's
birth.
an awesome question. So
Thank you.
remember how we were just talking about being in transition, being in labor, and breathing through sensation and breathing through difficult
Mhm.
um, kind of discomfort. So in my prenatal yoga class in particular, I'm going to hold women in poses like goddess pose. And they're going to be trembling, right? Their muscles are going to be
Mhm.
firing, and there's discomfort there. And so I use that as a opportunity for women to experience breathing through difficult sensation beforehand so they can kind of take their yoga practice off their mat right into the labor and delivery room.
That makes a lot of
So
sense.
that's a big one. But then
Mhm.
anatomically, we're doing poses like squatting that opens the pelvic floor. We're doing poses that also strengthens the pelvic floor. So what we are going for is tone, where the pelvic floor can squeeze and engage when it needs to, and then open and kind of let baby come through when it needs to. So we're working on poses that work with the pelvic
Yeah.
floor, hips, on the joints, joint stabilization often because of the hormone relaxin. It doesn't just open the hip joints, it makes everything mobile, right? And so you're
Mhm.
like, shoulders are more mobile and your everything's more mobile, your knees and your ankles. So we do some stabilizing movements, some strengthening movements to kind of keep you safe during pregnancy, keep you strong
Mhm.
during pregnancy. Um, and yes, and then working with breath, and then also working with kind of that body connection to body, listening to your
Yeah.
body, respecting your body, loving your body. And
Mhm.
so, and also bonding with baby. So kind of putting your hands on your belly, knowing that baby's on this ride with you, and then community building with other mamas, really, really
Mhm.
during pregnancy. So I think all of those things prepare. Um,
Yeah, such great words. Like a lot resonates being a therapist because like first I just want to say like the discomfort. As psychologists and therapists, we're always trying to help people sit with the discomfort of emotions, right? Which people like to avoid like the plague. So, I love this parallel with the physical, and I'm sure you're also with the emotional. But I think sometimes I observe people with pregnancy, and it is sometimes it's unpleasant, right, in the beginning with physical symptoms and things of that nature. But sometimes people are like, I hate being pregnant, and like they just start hating the discomfort, and I'm like, "Oh, no, your baby's hearing and sensing that." So, like, even if it's uncomfortable, there's ways to relate to that discomfort, right? Or to, support yourself through that. And I really like what you're saying about the physical because you're building that, like, the memory, the new neural pathway of what to expect when you actually get into that like birthing room, right? So, I mean, therapists are always visualizing things, but you're having them physically like be in those positions and move so like they can trust their body more, right? That they're going to be able to, it'll be less jarring, I would imagine. You tell me. I haven't given birth, but it sounds beautiful. If I decide to have a baby, I'm
Absolutely.
calling you again.
Well, absolutely. And really, if a birth is going smoothly,
Mhm.
I always recommend to my doula clients to um, try to keep moving. So that's where
Mhm.
another piece of the yoga comes in. They can do hip circles, they can do cat cow while they're in the birthing room, right? So just to kind of take that yoga practice in a very gentle way into the labor and delivery room through the actual poses, because movement is what brings baby into the world. Um, yeah.
Movement is key for everything. You know it.
Yeah. And
Well, and
Lauren,
yeah.
it's cool that you talked about that with therapy too, having people sit with discomfort, because the same is true in meditation, right? Sitting in
Mhm.
silence, all of these things come up, feelings and thoughts that are really uncomfortable. And that's why it's so hard to sit and be silent. Um,
Yeah.
but what I feel like has, like being a doula has taught me really, is that unless we are willing to sit with the discomfort and the pain, whether it's physically, psychologically, emotionally,
Mhm.
there's we're not we're going to have less opportunity to grow if we're not willing to sit with it. Because on the other side of that is this amazing opening, creative opening.
Right.
Um, it's so
Mhm.
much easier said than done, though.
So, more or less, like people think they're just coming to like do yoga, but you're really like transforming their whole way of being. You're like very
We
sneaky.
try.
No, but it is like there's so many ways in which we call it, like kind of your awakening, in which you realize, like, right, you can be your observer of your process through meditation and through. And I love sending people to yoga because your critic comes out and all of this stuff. But it really gives us that system, right? Whether you're coming from the psychological meditation or from physical, of really becoming an observer of your body and how to, you know, not react or be in a state of constant reactivity. It gives you a lot more power. And you said that before, like we're so in our own conversation that we're capable of so much more than we think we are. We just
Yeah,
often don't put ourselves to the test.
yeah. And the beautiful, like, there's so much research on meditation, um, where, and meditation is a component of yoga.
Mhm.
Um, that when we practice meditation and being that witness, we're we're actually more able to pause in our life off the mat and actually have choices, like all these different creative choices. That's where the creativity comes from, because we have these
Mhm.
now we have this array of choices because we haven't
Right.
just gone on that same old reactive path over and
Yeah.
over and over. And so it's
Right.
really like opens up our lives. And again, it's
Mhm.
much easier said than done, but I think just knowing the power of it is a big first step.
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah. When you feel it, then you start wanting to repeat it, right? And practicing. And it's a constant, practice,
Yeah.
but it's a rewarding one. So before we kind of come up to your wrap up wise tips for these mothers or in general audience, do we have another question? And while you're pondering your trivia question, I will say that we from Delray Psych and Wellness will be offering a 30-minute Reiki session for free, Reiki energy. So we do everything COVID safe, but you, of course, can wait till post COVID, and our energy healer will be doing that if you're interested. If that doesn't interest you, we'll give you a whole sample of essential oils that you can play with for your health and wellness. So, all right,
Awesome.
take it away.
Okay, it's a little bit hard, but I think moms will know it. Um, so what is the the creamy substance that's on your baby when your baby first comes out of the womb. What is it called? That coats and covers your baby's skin. And if people don't know it, it's a good thing to know about because it's pretty cool stuff. Everything in nature has a purpose.
Yes. So while we wait for people to write in here, um, what's if you had to say one or two tips that you would say is like really important for people that are going through pregnancy or childbirth, what would you want them to know?
Yeah. Um, so I'm going to steal a quote from um, a, a famous midwife named Ina May Gaskin. And I think in one of the pictures of me that's potentially on this show, I'm reading a book by her called Ina May's Guide to Childbirth, which I highly recommend to everybody. Ina May's Guide to Childbirth.
Okay.
It's such a beautiful book. And um, so reading positive stories about birth, that would be
Mm-hmm.
one. Um,
Yeah,
of my
not just tuning into horror stories. Yeah.
No, right? Or not like on TV. We see like transition. That's all we see. We don't see the rest of the labor and delivery. Um, I would say that's read that book. And then her quote that I love is when asked, "What's the number one thing a pregnant woman should know?" She says, "To love and respect her body." And I think
Yeah.
when we are pregnant, it is another opportunity to really unlearn all of the things we are taught about our bodies in this culture that are
Mm,
so backwards, right?
mm.
Like just love your body, love it up. Your body needs your love, not your criticism. And these the voices of criticism are implanted in our heads, but let's dismantle those voices.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah. And love yourself, like I often find when I'm working with new mothers, everybody has something to say. You should do this, you should do this, you should read that book. It's almost information overload and opinion overload. And I'm just like, well, how about you just maybe trust your intuition a little bit? So, I think that goes back to tuning in and allowing that process. If you want to read 10 books, go for it. But tuning in, right? I mean, people were mothering and birthing way before we had the internet, So I think it's really important to
Totally.
remember and also to allow yourself, right, to grow and to make
Yeah.
mistakes.
Yes. That's why I love that book. And I'm like, just go read that
Mhm.
book. Like you need to read because it's all about women following their intuition. It's birth stories about women who followed their intuition. Um and that's where the real knowledge is, right? Inside of us. We know. We have a wise inner guide. Um
Mhm.
it's really
That's
trusting that. Really trusting that.
Yeah. Yeah, and for some people just realizing it's even there, So it sounds like, that's a big part I know of, your holistic approach and mixing, modern and ancestral like wisdom and medicine. And that's what, I appreciate about you.
Thank
So, and
you.
I know you also see people post pregnancy too, right? I mean, of course people could take yoga forever with you, but you do their postnatal series as well?
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, that's really
Specific
good because there's
classes
people with
for
babies. Yeah.
post-pregnancy.
Yeah.
Moms have, whether it's the separation of their abdominals, diastasis, it's called, or whether they had to have a C-section or their pelvis is out of alignment and they're struggling with, pelvic floor dysfunction or um, incontinence. Our classes are really, really designed to address those very specific things in a safe way so that we can kind of
Mhm.
get back. We call it the fourth trimester. to a
Yeah.
place where it's safe
Sure.
to do exercises that she was doing before she was pregnant. So
Yeah.
I think postnatal classes are equally, if not even more important, in terms of just safety for mama.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And that must be just a beautiful continuation of the process and the community that I'm sure people build there as
It,
well.
is-
So,
it really,
excellent.
really is. We love it.
All right. So Anne Marie Gordon, is this
She
answer
got
correct?
Yeah, she got
That's
it.
I've not even heard of that at all. Good
So the
job, Anne
vernix
Marie.
is, I'll give you just a little tidbit about it because it's pretty cool stuff. It actually, um, so usually the doctor or nurse will just wipe baby down now instead of bathing baby. Just wipe baby
Mhm.
down and wrap baby up and give baby to mom. So it's nice to keep the vernix on because it's a natural um, kind of barrier for bacteria, and so
Mm,
it's super healthy for the baby to have it on their skin, and also as the baby's body is still like they're learning or they're adjusting to temperature control right in the body, and they
sure.
don't it's not developed yet, and so the vernix kind of keeps them swaddled in an interesting way, right? The skin is the
Yeah.
biggest organ, so it's covered and protected.
Yeah. Yeah, so almost like a sense of safety, right? And helping with the
Yeah.
attachment to the mom. So yeah, that's interesting. That's a good tidbit to know.
So it doesn't have to
Well,
be removed. It's not dirty. It's really there for a reason.
yeah. Yep. Well, and also, Anne Marie, I will text message or Facebook you after to get your information for your prize. And same to Kristen. We appreciate everybody tuning in tonight. And Sarah, you want to just say your website and where people can find out more information?
Sure, absolutely. So we're at mindthemat, mat.com, and all of our programs are there on our website, mindthemat.com.
And do you go on Instagram? Do you have a
Yep,
this?
at Mind the Mat is our Instagram handle, and we post a lot on Instagram.
Yeah, you
So
guys have a lot of
right now
videos.
we're doing virtual small in studio classes, and then also outdoor classes now that the weather's getting nice, both in prenatal and post pregnancy. So
Yeah, geez, I hope that this is all changing soon. People, and myself too, missing that community of, yeah, yoga is not meant to be practiced separately, but you know what? We do what we have to do with handling discomfort, but it sure is going to be great, and I imagine, especially for the moms, to be able to have that community again. So,
yeah,
yeah.
yes, absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. Well, thank you again for being on and for spreading your wisdom and helping all these women through this wonderful process in their life.
Of
Appreciate you, Sarah.
course. Yeah, thank you so much for having me on the show, Lauren. I really, really appreciate it. And thank
Yeah.
you, everyone who showed up and participated. Thank you
Yep.
so much for, yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you. And then just to wrap up here, we'll be back in 2 weeks with another show. I have Dr. Lola Caps on. We'll be talking all about pain. Speaking of, we were just talking about pain, and she's talking about back pain and other pains that people want to ignore and pretend isn't there. So we'll be continuing on this of like how to tune in and how to learn when to tend to your body and when to take care of it and things of that nature. Tomorrow there's Alexandria Makers Market on with Alyssa Kovich at 7 p.m. here at Zebra TV. And on Monday, we've got Steve Hauk, who's, pretty awesome. He's got a great show, Living on Music, and he always has very interesting guests. So, all right. And to conclude, as we always say, don't forget to be the good news in someone's life. Have a good evening. Bye bye.